A Cartel submarine with a radar-absorbing hull and a 2,000-pound lithium-ion battery nearly slipped past the U.S. Navy. It carried roughly 3 tons of meth and cocaine, street value over $400 million, and 2 lightless escort boats guarding it in the dark. In the next few minutes, you'll see how a Poseidon, a destroyer, 4 riverine craft, and an MH-60 turned a faint thermal smudge into a surgical boarding. And what they found inside didn't look homemade. It looked industrial, international, and engineered to disappear. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. One faint smear on a radar sweep, slow, half-submerged, and cruising the wrong lane, shouldn't move an entire sector, but no AIS and dead radio in the Gulf at 6 knots is the sort of silence that means intent. The Anomaly looked like clutter until the operator tagged the return across 2 scans and saw it hold course. That consistency, plus the lack of any digital handshake, tripped the alert ladder. Within minutes, the watch floor marked a probable low-profile vessel, and the question shifted from, is it real, to how fast can we build a box around it? Up at altitude, a P-8A Poseidon picked up a low-heat outline that wasn't behaving like drift or debris. Irregular metal in the return, barely above the waterline, and a temperature profile cooler than the surrounding sea. The crew flagged it, pushed coordinates to the Coast Guard cutter Hamilton, and the ship rolled to general quarters. At the same time, a Navy destroyer began to angle for a cross arc, widening its Doppler look to bracket the track as if it were laying down guide rails for the rest of the net. Then the contact slipped under a thermal layer and the heat faded to near zero. For a moment, the water looked empty. 2 lightless hulls, skimming in loose orbit on passive sensors, appeared where the radar might have shown nothing. Escorts, keeping just enough distance to claim coincidence if anyone challenged them. If the low-profile boat vanished now, currents and night would erase it before dawn, and the trail would die with the next squall line. The response stacked up piece by piece. The Poseidon held high and slow. A MH-60S spun on deck with crews strapped in. 4 riverine boats sat tied and hot in the well, and the destroyer nudged into a geometry that let its radar cross-fix with the cutter's sweeps. Overhead, satellite infrared pings kept blinking along a vector pointing 90 nautical miles east. A breadcrumb line that suggested a rendezvous window rather than a random drift. In Pensacola, the fusion room's AI stitched the puzzle together. Navy feeds, Coast Guard intelligence, and DEA Maritime Task Force pushed live data into one pane. Speed variations matched depth changes. A cadence of encrypted bursts at regular intervals didn't give content, but it gave rhythm. AI flagged those bursts, noted a 42 Hz pulse repeating every 18 seconds on passive, and weighted the track as mechanical rather than organic. That call tightened everyone's timeline. The next 10 minutes turned into a quiet duel. The sub vented for a few seconds, just enough to clear exhaust, and went mute again. Its escort slid outward to smear the wake and throw off any surface pattern tracker. The Poseidon, denied heat, answered with sound, kicking a sonobuoy line right along the last known. The buoys listened under the thermal lid for the faint metallic whisper the radar couldn't show and the infrared couldn't see. Low observable hulls win by denying you a single clear picture. Radar-absorbing polymers soak cross-section, minimal heat blends into sea state, and AIS silence gives no anchor for standard maritime filters. Multi-sensor tracking rebuilds that picture by forcing agreement across physics. If radar, infrared, and acoustic each whisper the same position, the ghost stops being a rumor. A concrete clue landed when SBIRS flagged a brief infrared spike that lined up with a commercial lane known for Venezuelan-bound cargo. The timing fit a cargo ship's declared schedule carrying industrial paint shipments, which offered a clean cover for heavy pallets moved fast in a closed bay. The break came when the sub rose again, only for about 6 seconds, just long enough for a Reaper to tag it and hold a thermal lock. The drone's optics also confirm ID'd 2 small warship silhouettes running dark. Corvettes, not fishing guardians. That was enough. Command pushed execute phase Delta. The watch phase ended. Engines roared back up across the net. Hamilton spooled to 28 knots. Boats cast off. The destroyer tightened its turn. The ocean that masked them minutes ago started closing like a gate. Phase Delta hits, and the plan snaps tight. 4 assault boats peel out from the well deck, bows light, engines biting. The cutter hammers at 28 knots, throwing white water off the bow. Overhead, a Seahawk circles with a GAU-21 ready. Why take this risk up close? Because distance favors a boat built to vanish, and the clock favors the cargo ship waiting east. The only way to stop the transfer is to force control now on the surface, before the sub slips back under and disappears into a rendezvous window. Briefing flows fast over headsets. Teams carry boarding ladders, bolt cutters, breaching kits, and shock cords to fight a wet, rounded hull. Intel calls a 12-man crew inside the sub and about 25 gunmen split between 2 escorts. Weapons catalog shows Uzis, AK-103s, and spare drums taped. Their radios ping in encrypted bursts every 45 seconds. A metronome you can plan around if you move on the beat. Each burst marks a check-in with something beyond the horizon. Everyone understands that timing owns this fight. The sub pops to vent and pushes water, speed creeping up. Both escorts break wide to flank. Tracers skate across the chop as they probe ranges. A single poor angle could trap the assault boats in a crossfire and send the cargo overboard. The coxswains answer with throttle and patience, sliding outside the arcs and forcing the escorts to swing their bows to keep pace. Every second the sub stays up is a second the net shrinks. Choreography takes over. Riverine craft stack an echelon, lead boat screening spray while gunners on the second and third boats brace into the mounts. The fourth boat carries the primary boarding team, tucked low behind shields until the last sprint. The MH-60R banks and lines up on the escort's stern quarters, prepared to rake engines if they sprint. The cutter holds the outer lane to deter any attempt to ram or cut across the bow. The P-8A feeds bearings so every pivot lands in the sub's path. Weapons come alive in layers. M4 carbines ride up for close work. 110 rifles find glass and hands on the escorts. MK-48S and 50 caliber mounts thump for suppression to keep heads down without chewing up the sub's skin. The GAU-21 angles for disabling fire only, aim to turn propellers into dead weight. Rules hold tight. Return fire and hostile intent drive every burst. The goal is control, not spectacle. Hull contact hits hard. Ladders bite and spark against a dark polymer skin, teeth grinding for purchase. Spray blinds, then clears. One sailor takes shrapnel across the forearm, checks motion and stays in the stack. A breacher leans into the hatch seam with a timed charge and wrench, forcing the lock as the team shields the blast. Inside, hands go up in a cramped passage, and 2 crew try to dump a bag into a bilge sump before a rifle barrel convinces them otherwise. The coating that kept the sub quiet at distance doesn't stop a boarding at arm's length. Radar-absorbing polymers reduce cross-section. Carbon fiber-wrapped fasteners dull acoustic ping. None of that matters when ladders pin angles and kinetics do the rest. Speed steals options, and angles deny evasion. Then the finds start stacking. A 2,000-pound lithium-ion pack sits stamped with Shenzhen dynamics. Quick math says roughly 600 nautical miles of submerged endurance. Bulkheads hide compartments with strapped pallets and spill kits for liquid loads. Valves lead to a fast offload manifold. This is logistics, not improvisation. What turned heads wasn't the weight on deck. It was a low observable sub built from an international parts list designed to outlast routine patrols. Data fused across radar, sonar, and infrared kept it from slipping the net, proving how multi-agency links changed the game. When the order came, execute phase Delta. It showed how fast that fusion flips from tracking to action.